Good morning and welcome to our Sunday service of Summit Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. My name is Lynn and I am Service Associate for today's service. We welcome all of you on Zoom who are joining us virtually from your homes today. We are recording today's service and will turn it off for our community gathering after the service. And now let us begin to enter the spirit of celebration by turning our hearts and minds to our prelude.
Good morning. This morning, I wanted to play for you some canons, which was to the topic of the sermon about symmetry and math, because a canon is actually a musical form that repeats exactly at a different interval. In this case, Bach's Goldberg Variations features canons both at the unison, the second, and the sixth interval, and they're very tightly organized, and you'd think it would sound like a sort of exercise, but with Bach, it sounds like a very joyful conversation. So I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Karen. I actually found myself listening for those intervals. As you know, Summit UU Fellowship is an inclusive community whose shared principles of love and compassion bring us together. The specific principles and purposes that we aspire to are listed in the order of service. The mission of Summit is to commit ourselves to building a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to Summit and would like to know more about us, we invite you to go to our website, summituuf.org, click on the visitors button, and fill out our online connection card. Someone will follow up with you. We also, as always, want to acknowledge that our fellowship resides on unceded Kumeyaay land, and that for more than 10,000 years, this land has been and continues to be home to the Kumeyaay people. We recognize the violent history of colonization in California and honor the legacy of the continuing presence of the Kumeyaay Nation. Now we have a couple of announcements. First, we'll have Patrick, and then Erin Doherty. Will you please follow Patrick with your social justice report? And then we'll do the chalice sliding. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. To those interested in the theater arts, I would like to cordially extend an invitation to come watch Ace Theatrics' production of Hamlet by the one and only William Shakespeare. We're competing in San Diego Fringe Festival. I'll probably post a link in Zoom so anyone can come check it out. I think it's a very interesting new take, and it's cut down to only an hour, so it's not going to be the original 5-hour length of Hamlet, so it's a lot more palatable. So yeah, anyone interested, there will be a link in the chat.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Erin Doherty. I'm a member of the Social Justice and Action Committee. Ren, our leader, cannot be here today, so I am speaking on his behalf. For those of you that are unfamiliar with our committee, we're a group of members and friends that want to see measurable positive change in our congregation, community, both local and beyond. We meet via Zoom once a month on the second Sunday every month at 12:30 after the Sunday service. All are welcome, even if you've never joined us before. As a committee member, I want to mention some of the projects we've been involved in and what's on the horizon. Some past events include the Interfaith Shelter, where we host each year, pending COVID, Crisis House Assistance, which is now located here in Santee, near Rio Seco School, racial and immigration issues, LGBTQIA rights and issues, gender, community policing, accountability, voting rights, and other social action issues here in San Diego and beyond. We welcome any new ideas, causes, and information that we may not be aware of. Hence, we ask if you're interested to join one of our meetings. First, I wanted to highlight an upcoming event here in East County. Is called Juneteenth and Friends, and it's being put on in La Mesa on Sunday, June 19th from 12 to 4. All are welcome. According to their website, Juneteenth 2022 is a celebration to bring the community together to raise awareness of what Juneteenth is and sharing the important historical significance. It will be a family-oriented celebration for all, with participation from local businesses, educators, writers, churches, city leaders, and performers. The event is also looking for volunteers to help with the festivities. So if interested, I will later put up their website and link. There are also several summit members that will be attending. The second event coming up is the San Diego Pride Parade. This is the first year it'll be hosted since COVID. Last year and the year before caused it not to happen. The San Diego Unitarian Cluster participates yearly in the Pride Parade. This year, we'll begin marching and renting an Old Town trolley car for those who want to participate, but may not be able to march the entire 1.5-mile walk. We especially have some members from Summit that will participate. We participate with a rainbow-colored parasol brigade. If interested, please feel free to contact me and private message me to learn more about it. This, again, will be especially important as COVID has hampered past Pride weekends. Festivities. Also, third, we have ongoing discussion regarding voting rights and community justice. At future meetings, especially before fall midterms, our group will discuss ways to encourage and outreach and engage in the community. One example we do this by is with You the Vote. We're organizing on the state and local levels to fight for fair elections and advance community voting rights. Again, I will provide the link for You the Vote to learn more about that. Finally, as a member of Social Justice and Action Committee, but particularly as an individual, I'd like to talk about what has happened this week in our country, in my home state of Texas, regarding the school shootings. For those of you that don't know, I am a current school teacher and a psychologist, and this has affected me and our community very deeply. However you identify, Democrat, Republican, independent, no party, teacher, non-teacher, parent, non-parent, this affects you. We all have strong feelings about this, but we need to have change. But often we ask ourselves, what can I do? Well, there is actually a lot one can do. First off, on a small level, teachers, including myself, crusaders and advocates, are often feeling bullied, not important, or our voices don't matter. Recent issues with COVID, school closures, fear of CRT and indoctrinating children, we are often threatened weekly by emails or negative things on social media about what we do. We expect significant loss in teachers to quit. Now with the school shootings and the loss of a tremendous amount of lives, going to work every day just feels unsafe. Teachers need to know that you have our back. If you know a teacher or even just live nearby a school, writing a simple card of support would mean a lot to us. Teachers need to know it's not our fault. A door was left open and we're responsible for the failures of our political system. Right now, I think as a teacher, I just can't imagine what the parents of those children and the people in that community are feeling. What else can I do? A long time ago, Mark Biedman told me about a story called Boy Crisis. It highlighted that 95% of school shooters are male. Not interesting because the females in our society are not doing this. The book highlighted that our culture teaches young boys to pick themselves up by their bootstraps, or to not cry, or to not talk about their feelings. This needs to change. My suggestion, especially if you are a male or identify as a male, is mentor someone, or, just as my therapist, psychologist, director said, tell a young boy that, hey, when I needed help, I talked to someone, I needed counseling. Young boys in our youth and girls need to see that it's okay to ask for help. Also, mental health reform and access. It is very difficult to still access mental health services in this country. Things need to change. Mentorship. There are groups like Big Brothers and Big Sisters here in San Diego County that I'm a part of. Boys wait 1.5 years for a male mentor because there's very few male mentors volunteering. Consider that. I've been a part of it 14 years, and it's been one of the greatest experiences of my life. Once a month or twice a month, I take my mentee out. Again, politics. Who can I vote for that supports mental health initiatives and growth in our community to address these issues? Lastly, another thing is our advocates and crusaders. Some of them get burnt out too. In the past year, I saw people in our community be threatened, doxxed, stalked, called terrible names on Zoom meetings. I personally wrote these community leaders like Wilma Wooten in San Diego, who campaigned for COVID safety, and told them I appreciated them and I saw their work. We need to acknowledge those who are fighting for us too. So again, overall, Social Justice Committee, we send out our there's not even words for this. Just things need to change in our country, and it's not working. And as Unitarians, we are big fighters, but this is going to take the whole country. Again, I advise you to support those who are taking action, perhaps attend local school board meetings, even if you do not have a child in the school district. Come to oversight committees, which we do here at Social Justice Committee. Go onto your school's website and see how you can support them. Again, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to private message me here or our leader, Rin Corbet, if you have further questions. Again, we always welcome new visitors, ideas, suggestions, and feedback. We are all interconnected in this community and world. We cannot make progress without each individual mind, soul, and ideas and actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. And now we will move to our chalice lighting.
Sometimes the rush of this world makes our minds spin and crackle and spark with energy and stress and joys and fears. May we take inspiration from the flame of our chalice, alive but centered, dancing yet still, energy, focused, poised, giving light and warmth and comfort to those around it. May the energetic stillness of our chalice flame enter into us so that we too may find the center of our being.
Now we'll have the video of our UU hymn and then move to our aspiration.
Bajo el gran sol, surja esperanza, fe, amor, verdad y belleza cantando de cada tierra, cada voz. From all who dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every tongue.
Feel free to join me at home. May love be the spirit of this fellowship. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. And it's now time for us to go to RE and welcome our director of RE, Mary Carter Vale.
There we go. Technical difficulties. Can you hear me all? Good. All right. So good morning. I have a story for you today. This story is a Jataka tale from India and from the Buddhist tradition, and it's part of our moral tales curriculum. And we've told it in the congregation, but it has been many, many years. So this is the story of the brave little parrot. So in the Buddhist tradition, reincarnation is a thing. And to be reincarnated as the Buddha means to be reincarnated as the enlightened one. So this is our little parrot. So once long ago, the Buddha was born or reincarnated as a little parrot. Hello. One day, a storm broke out on her forest home. Lightning flashed and thunder crashed, and a dead tree was struck and it caught on fire. It's on fire. And Sparks leaped, and soon the forest was starting to catch from this lightning strike. Well, the terrified animals ran in every direction, and the little parrot cried, "Fire, fire," while flying around. "Run to the river," she advised. "Run to the river," to all the other animals. So flapping her wings, she flung herself out of the forest and started heading for the water herself. But as she flew, she could see that there were many animals that were trapped, that were having a hard time getting to the river. They couldn't figure out how to get there. They were kind of trapped by the flames. Well, suddenly a desperate idea came to the little parrot of a way to save the animals in the forest. So she darted to the river and she dipped herself into the water and flew back over the now raging fire with water dripping off of her. And as she flew, the heat was rising up from the burning forest with like the heat of an oven, and there was thick smoke, and it was hard to breathe, but she kept flying through those flames, that wall of flames. And finally she made it back to where, through the maze of fire, to where the center of the fire was, and she shook her little body, and all these little droplets of rain flew all over her and my computer. And the little jewels, of water kind of fell into the flames and sort of into the blaze and vanished with like a hissing sound. If you've ever heard water hit a flame, it kind of hisses. Well, the little parrot, after she'd shaken her wings dry and coughed the smoke out of her lungs, went back over through the flames all the way to the river and dipped herself again in the water and flew back over to the burning forest, and back and forth she flew, shaking her little wings, trying to put out this big fire with her tiny little droplets from her wings. Now her lungs ached from the smoke she was breathing, her muscles were exhausted, and her feathers were singed, but she didn't stop. Back and forth, she kept going. Now at this time, some of the divas, or gods of a happy realm, were floating high overhead in their cloud palaces of ivory and gold, and they happened to look down and they saw the little parrot flying back and forth. And they pointed to her with their perfect hands, and between mouthfuls of honeyed foods, they'd exclaimed, "Look at that foolish little bird. She's trying to put out a raging forest fire with but a few sprinkles of water. How ridiculous, how absurd." And they laughed, ha, 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 ha. But one of those gods did not laugh. Strangely moved, they changed themselves into a golden eagle and flew down towards the little parrot's fiery path. The little parrot was just nearing the flames again when the eagle, with eyes like molten gold, appeared at her side. "Go back, little bird," they said in the eagle's solemn and majestic voice. "Your task is hopeless. A few drops of water can't put out a forest fire. Cease now and save yourself before it's too late." But the little parrot only continued to fly on through the smoke and flames. She could hear the great eagle flying above her as the heat grew fiercer, calling out, "Stop, foolish little one. Stop, foolish parrot. Save yourself. Save yourself." "I don't need a great shining eagle," coughed the little parrot, "to give me advice on like that. My own mother, the dear bird, might have told me such a thing long ago. Advice. I don't need advice. I just need someone to help." And the god, who was the great eagle, seeing the little parrot flying through the flames, thought suddenly of his own very privileged kind. How could he could see them floating high above the other gods and divas. And yes, they were there, the carefree gods, still hanging out and talking, while many animals cried out in the pain and fear from among the flames. And seeing that, he grew ashamed, and a single desire was kindled in his heart. God, though he was, he just wanted to be like that brave little parrot and to help. "I will help," they exclaimed, flushed with his new feelings. They began to weep, and stream after stream of sparkling tears poured from his eyes down upon the forest and upon the animals and upon the little parrot herself. When those tears fell, the flames died down. And the smoke, it began to clear. And the little parrot, washed in bright, rocketed up the sky, laughing for joy. Ah, yay! Oh, that's more like it, she exclaimed. And the eagle's tears dripped from the burned branches and soaked onto the scorched earth. Where those tears glistened, new life pushed up quickly forth. Shoots came, and stems and leaves and buds and unfurled, and blossoms opened, and green grass pushed up from among the still glowing embers. All the animals looked up in amazement as the eagle flew off, and there was the little parrot. Washed by those tears, they were whole and well, and no one had been harmed. Up above in the clear blue sky, they could see their friend, this little parrot, looping and soaring with delight. And when hope was gone, somehow she had saved them. Hooray, they cried, hooray for the brave little parrot, and for all the sudden miraculous rain. So that is the story of the brave little parrot. She's a little wet now, and so am I. I have 2 questions for you to think about after that story. So what do you think this story teaches us? That there are times when things seem hopeless and we seem very small. And just like Erin shared with us, there are little steps that we can take to help make a difference when we've lost all hope. A little parrot shaking raindrops on a forest doesn't seem like it will put the fire out. But can you imagine if every bird in the forest flew up and shook their wings full of rain, full of water drops from the river? If you had 1,000 or 1,000,000 birds doing that, it might have put a fire out. In this story, it was divine intervention, but that doesn't always happen in real life now, does it? So my next question for you is, have you ever stepped up to help or shared yourself? I know this community summit has been built on the gifts of volunteers and our staff, but especially volunteers who help out with all the little things, like the people who put on our services on Sundays, the team that does that, our social justice and action team, folks who volunteer with RE. So think about, how do you lean in? How do you help? Where do you like to spread your wings and drop droplets of water? That is my story for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mary. I didn't think you could make me smile about a forest fire, but that was well done. Reverend Everett's reading today. Let me begin by intro. Some philosophers in the 19th century thought that since mathematics can be used so well to describe the motion of physical objects on earth and in the heavens, that mathematics must be the language of God, and that we can gain insight into God by understanding math. The French philosopher Edgar Quinet expressed this idea in particularly colorful and fulsome language. He wrote, "These pure and everlasting formulas that existed before the world was made and that will remain after it is gone, that govern through all time and throughout all space, that are, as it were, an essential part of God. These sacred formulas, which will survive the ruin of the universe, put any mathematician worthy of the name in profound communion with divine thought. These immutable truths the mathematician tastes, the perfection of creation, and praise in its language. The mathematician says to the world, as was said of old, be silent that we may hear the whispers of the gods." Finally, our offering for today. In a week, as Erin mentioned, of so much inexplicable loss in our country, I find myself heartened to be part of a community in which the inherent worth and dignity of every person is our very first UU principle. If Summit is one piece of your life where this resonates, please consider contributing to our virtual plate today. The link can be found in the chat box, and it will take you directly to the donation location. During the musical interlude, we will receive our morning offering, which helps sustain our fellowship. Thank you.
Play the variations for the healing of Aranushka by Everett, who was an Estonian composer. And in this music, he uses very, very simple means of broken chords and a scale, and he uses them backwards, forwards, slower and faster, and starts in minor and ends in major to hopefully give us some sense of healing that we all need. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Please join me now in a spirit of prayer or meditation. I will begin with a short poem that Amanda Gorman posted on Twitter on the day of the massacre, the latest massacre, this week's massacre. She wrote, "Schools scared to death. The truth is, one education under desks, stooped low from bullets. That plunge when we ask, where our children shall live, and how, and if. The truth is, one nation under guns." Spirit of life, spirit of love, each week in worship we invoke you. Each week in worship we call upon you for support. And throughout the week, each one of us may reach out to you, Spirit of life, in our individual prayers, our individual periods of meditation, our individual moments of connection to that which surrounds us and sustains us. Each week and throughout the week, we hope to connect to life and to love. And this week, as in so many others, as in too many others, we reach out in pain because the lives of people in our nation have been torn apart by senseless violence, preventable violence. Spirit of life, we pray to you. We sing to you in beloved hymns. We believe in the blessings of life and love for all people. And yet, as a nation, we allow senseless death to continue unabated week after week. 247 people killed in school shootings since 2010. More than 6,000 people killed in all mass shootings since 2010. We mourn the teachers and students killed this week. We mourn the people killed in Buffalo the week before. Spirit of life, spirit of love, we ask for peace for all of the families of those killed. We ask for peace for those who were injured or traumatized. We ask for comfort for all those whose hearts are aching. We know there are many kinds of prayers. Here, now, with our words and our hearts, we pray for solace. But for any solace we receive, we commit to other prayers. Prayers that we can make with our feet, marching in protest. Prayers that we can make with our hands, writing the truth. Prayers that we can make with our speech, confronting those in power who take no action to stop the slaughter that has been continuing for far too long. Prayers that we can make by voting. Spirit of life, hear these prayers. Give us solace. Give us strength. And may our work to prevent gun violence be fruitful. and may it be a blessing for the generations that will come after us. Amen. Blessed be. May it be so. We thank Elizabeth Alexander for setting those words, that prayer of Soren Kierkegaard to music. And we thank the Lumina Women's Ensemble for its performance. Eleanor, Linda, would you be willing to come up? There may be tempests in our hearts, but for 2 decades, there has been a still center at the soul of our fellowship, Linda Peck. Linda has worked with every single one of Summit's ministers since Reverend Ned. She has been the first person that many people interact with when they first contact Summit. She has been a steady presence, and she has seen many people come and go. And now she has decided that it is her time to depart, to rest after many years of work, to enjoy seeing her family. For the rest of us, this will be a time of sadness for a while. But for Linda, we hope it will be a time of joy and renewal. Eleanor asked our previous ministers if they would like to share some words for this occasion. And we have several things to say.
The first is an ode to Linda Peck, OWED, on the occasion of her retirement from Summit. When Linda first came to SUF, her hopes of employment went poof. Who was this guy Ned? Clearly out of his head. How could they work beneath the same roof? And who were these folks called UUs with their notions about freedom to choose what you think and believe, what strands you can weave of faith that transcends don'ts and do's? Well, much to her credit, she stayed, and through blood, sweat, and tears, her dues paid. With her talents immenseable, she became indispensable and enriched by the friendships she made. She long kept her eye on the ball, but now she's heard Oregon's call. So let's hear what the heck for our beloved Linda Peck as we give thanks and love one and all.
And from Reverend Tom. Linda Peck assumed her post as SUF's administrator about the same time I served for 2 years as interim minister. During countless ministerial ups and downs, as well as congregational challenges, Linda remained a steady, reliable presence in the office. You could always count on her to get any job done with efficiency and grace. She helped all Summitarians weather their storms and enjoy their celebrations. I add my heart and voice to the chorus of gratitude for our beloved Linda Peck. Onward, dear one, to a life of joy, creativity, and fulfillment. Reverend Dr. Tom Owen Toll.
In her role of office administrator for Summit Fellowship, Linda Peck was dedicated to her work and doing her best to help the fellowship function and thrive. Often the first to greet newcomers and prospective members, she was hospitable and friendly to all who came to our doors. She was always concerned for the sick and troubled. She was an integral, committed member of our staff team. In her later years, she was sought out by other UU administrators for her wisdom and counsel. For 20 years, Linda has given her time and energy selflessly to fulfilling a position description that would have been too demanding for mere mortals. I often told the community that she was the goddess who held the universe together, and I wasn't joking. She never took her job for granted or thought of herself as superior to others. I always found her to be a humble person who was always open to learning and growing personally and professionally in her job. I'll never forget when member John McQuaid told me that Summit would never find someone who could replace Linda. He was right. As I look back over my 10 years of working with Linda, I feel a deep sense of gratitude to her for all that she did to help us build and maintain beloved community. Linda, as you move on to be closer to your family and give yourself to doing more of the things you enjoy, rock collecting, jewelry making, hiking, and being with your family, just know that I will always carry a deep personal appreciation for you, for your guilelessness, your good work, and your frustration, tolerance in the face of countless demands on your time and energy. Well done, good and faithful servant. As your life flows on, may it be an endless song, traveling mercies to you, dear friend, Frank Plagonwilly.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. In a few minutes at noon, so a little more than an hour from now, we will have a proper celebration in the parking lot with as many of you as can make it here. There will be cake, but until that celebration, may I give you this bouquet and a present from all of the members and friends and staff of Summit. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for all that you have done. Thank you, thank you. It's been a blessing. So many wonderful people. Thank you so much. And you have been a blessing to us. So once again, that will be starting at noon in the parking lot here at Summit. Please come to give Linda a wonderful send-off as she moves on to the next stage of her life. So at Summit's auction last year, I offered to work with someone on choosing a topic for a sermon. Jamie Cleland made the winning bid, and he asked whether I could talk about the relationship between mathematics and religion, and also whether I would say something more about my personal journey from research mathematics to ministry. Well, Jamie, today is the day, and I hope that I can say something about these topics that has some larger meaning. Let me start with some history. I love the reading that Lynn gave a few minutes ago, written in 1844 by the French philosopher Edgar Quinet. The reading that so romantically connects mathematics to the deepest mysteries of the universe. Be silent, Quinet imagines the mathematician saying. Be silent so that we may hear the whispers of the gods. That's what being a mathematician is like, I just have to say. And what is the context for this idea? It goes back a long way. Pythagoras, the ancient Greek whose name you might remember from the theorem about the sides of a right triangle, Pythagoras led a religious sect. The Pythagoreans believed that mathematics reflected the perfection of the universe. And the legend is that they killed a researcher who proved a mathematical statement that did not fit their idea of perfection. Much later, Galileo is supposed to have said that mathematics is the language in which God has written the universe. And the ways in which scientists could use math to solve physical problems must have seemed somewhat miraculous. This was especially true in astronomy, where planetary bodies follow the law of gravitation without the complicating factors of friction. In fact, around the time that Edgar Quinet wrote about the whispers of the gods, there was a striking demonstration of how well math works in astronomy. Using math, astronomers noticed some irregularities in the orbit of the planet Uranus. And they thought that these irregularities could be explained if there were another planet yet undiscovered whose gravity was affecting Uranus. Two different astronomers, one in England and one in France, made extensive computations in order to predict where this hypothetical planet would have to be in the sky. They predicted where people should point their telescopes to find this planet, and they were right. On September 23rd, 1846, a German astronomer looked in the right location in the night sky and identified the planet Neptune for the first time. This was a spectacular accomplishment, and it brought forth more flowery language. David Brewster, a physicist in Scotland, attributed the discovery of Neptune to the clairvoyance of reason in finding those sublime realities which have eluded the keenest touch and evaded the sharpest eye. Cyrus Bartle, a transcendentalist and a Unitarian minister, described the discovery as the fulfillment of the sure prophetic word of the divinely inspired understanding of man. You can read about this discovery and its reception in a book by Daniel J. Cohen called Equations from God, Pure Mathematics and Victorian Faith. Much of what I've said so far comes from Cohen's book. Now, the last quotation that I mentioned came from a Unitarian minister, a transcendentalist. And this makes sense. You see, in 1828, the Unitarian minister William Ellery Channing had preached that God's nature is reflected in our own human nature. And he said that we can learn about God, therefore, by self-reflection. Channing asked, From where do we derive our knowledge of the attributes and perfections which constitute the supreme being? I answer, he said, we derive them from our own souls. The transcendentalists took this idea and ran with it. In American religion at the time, the idea that you could discover truths about God from pure thought and self-reflection was, well, heresy. And the transcendentalists wanted to show that there were already ways in which people found truth from pure thought. And in their understanding, that's what mathematicians were already doing. So the transcendentalists use the success of mathematics in finding the planet Neptune to support their ideas of how individuals could learn more about God. Now, in a sense, they were right. Mathematicians often try to take some real-world problem that's messy and complicated and to find a way to view it abstractly, to throw away the extraneous details and to think about the essential elements of the problem. And then, once it's abstract, they can figure things out and then apply those results to the real-world situation. But that intermediate step, when you take the idealized problem and figure things out about it, that idealized step of deducing things happens in the realm of pure thought. Mathematicians, in this view, simply find new truths by thinking about old ones. And this is one way you can think about mathematics. But the problem with this view is that it ignores the more social aspects of mathematics. The social aspects of mathematics? What are those, you might ask? I mean, when I was in grade school, at least, they never mentioned that. But of course, one basic social aspect of mathematics is what questions do mathematicians find important? Why do some subjects in math get a lot of attention and others get much less? Personally, there are lots of problems that I could work on if I wanted to, but one of the things that motivates me to think about one problem over another is whether people I care about seem like they're stuck on it. More practically, if you're trying to get a research grant from, say, the National Science Foundation, you've got to convince the people at the NSF that what you're doing is important. But there's an even more basic way that math is social. You can't really say that you've proven something in math unless you can convince another person with your arguments. Something may seem crystal clear to you, but you have to put that thought into words or pictures or something that will convince another person. And mathematicians put a lot of work in this. When your argument doesn't convince other mathematicians, you haven't succeeded in proving something. And famous mathematicians have come up with arguments that are wrong. They need other people to help get to the truth. You can't just trust your own judgment alone. Mathematics progresses when you contribute your own ideas to a larger community. And this social aspect of mathematics is something that the transcendentalists weren't so focused on. In fact, this represents a larger problem that I see with the transcendentalists. In their time, it was revolutionary in America to talk about religious truths as something that you could find out on your own by self-reflection. Transcendentalism was pushing back against a system that said that religious truth came from particular interpretations of the Bible or from religious authorities. But the individualistic viewpoint of the transcendentalists, while it was important in their time, It's now so deeply ingrained in the way that Americans are taught to view the world that, in my opinion, what we need most as a corrective is the sense that truth is built up in community. I think about this in terms of our 8 Unitarian Universalist principles. To me, I associate the Transcendentalists with the first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And what I think the Transcendentalists missed was the importance of the 7th principle, the interconnected web of all existence of which we are a part. Now, all of this is pretty abstract history. How does it connect with my choice to enter seminary when I was 50 years old? I spent most of my career working at a think tank in La Jolla, but my first job after getting my math degree was teaching at the University of Michigan. I really enjoyed teaching, or at least I enjoyed the parts of the teaching that weren't grading. But one of the best parts of teaching was working with students who had unexpected questions. Sometimes a student would come up after class and ask a question that really made no sense at all to me. As in, the student wouldn't be using mathematical words in the way that I understood them. And I would have to think back to how something was explained in the textbook or by me in class. I would have to think back with a completely fresh mind and figure out how what the book said or what I said got interpreted by the student, and how their question reflects their understanding. And if I did that well, if I could go back and imagine their perspective when they first heard these words in the textbook or in class, hopefully I would have a moment of understanding. Oh, when the book said this, you interpreted it like that. Oh, and I could see where the communication failed. And I would be able to understand why the student phrased their question in this way that initially made no sense to me. That moment of understanding, that moment of seeing the world the way the student did, was one of the most precious things about teaching. Once I understood the student's thinking, I could try to clear up misunderstandings of what the textbook was trying to communicate or what I had said in class. It was a moment of connection to another person, a feeling like I was being gifted with a peek into someone else's mind. Now that is also something that you find in ministry. When someone comes to you with a pastoral concern, you are trusted with a glimpse into their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions. You get to see the world through someone else's eyes. And sometimes that is enough to help a person. Sometimes when you are worried or upset, simply sharing your fear or sadness or anxiety with someone, simply being witnessed can make you feel less alone and less anxious. When I was having my first experiences providing pastoral care for First Church in Hillcrest as a lay leader, I was surprised to find this connection with my days as a teacher. I was surprised because when you provide pastoral care, you are generally not teaching or explaining, you are simply listening. And I hadn't realized how much of good teaching consists of listening seriously to the people you are trying to teach. So that's one unexpected similarity between my two careers. On the other hand, one difference between them has to do with a line from William Blake. His poem, Auguries of Innocence, begins, "To see a world in a grain of sand." In some ways, thinking about math feels like that to me. You focus your attention on a problem and bring all of your thought to it. It becomes your world. When I concentrate intensely on a math problem, I truly am finding a world in a grain of sand. And it can take days or weeks or months or years to thoroughly explore that world. A couple of months ago, I was working on a problem and I dreamt about it for several nights in a row. And yes, the dreams helped. I woke from one of them understanding that what I thought might be true was in fact slightly wrong. And in the dream, I saw the point that was incorrect. And all of this was over something whose details were so small, so technical. A world in a grain of sand. But about 10 years ago, I had a new experience. I had been attending church for about 5 years by then, and I had seen all the ways in which that community supported itself and did good in the world. And one day, I looked up from my worlds, from my grains of sand. I looked up and I saw a beach, sand stretching off into the distance. A beach full of people, some laughing, some running, some looking at their own worlds in their own grains of sand, some people splashing and swimming, and some people out too deep in the water, waving for help. I love my grains of sand. I love taking something that seems very small and thinking so hard about it that it becomes an entire world. I love finally understanding something. I love the sense that what was once a mystery to me has become clear. But now I know that I can also set down these worlds. I can set them down and run across the sand and plunge into the water and swim out to those who are overwhelmed by the waves. Amen. As we extinguish this flame, let its ever-changing stillness calm our hearts and stir us to action. May we look up from our daily lives, see the need in the world, and work ever harder for justice. Please enjoy our closing circle song and feel free to stay afterwards for a few minutes on Zoom for our community gathering. But don't forget, come to Summit by noon for Linda's celebration.
Together, hand in hand, in fellowship we stand before we